So, I think this was my viewing point spread prediction video today. I'll be doing the Alabama Crimson Tide. So, when Nick Saban was Alabama's coach, Alabama always had a very high floor, no matter how tough their schedule was, and no matter how much they had coming back. You knew they were going to have a really good record. But after Kalen DeBoer's first year, where they only went 9-3, and they're going to have a pretty similar schedule this year, and they're going to have an inexperienced quarterback. I think Alabama could have a pretty low floor this year. And when Nick Saban was Alabama's coach, Alabama's ceiling was always 12-0, no matter how tough the schedule was, and no matter how much they had coming back. But this year, I think Alabama's ceiling is 11-1, and their schedule, I guess, is a little tougher than last year's because of the non-conference schedule. So last year in the non-conference, they played Wisconsin and three little teams. This year they play Wisconsin and Florida State and two little teams. Now, if it's tougher, will depend on how good Florida State is, because Florida State was so bad last year that it would have been like playing a little team for Alabama. Florida State was one of the worst Power Five teams I had ever seen last year. And Florida State was so bad that if they had won all their close games, they still wouldn't have made a bowl game. Now, as bad as Florida State was last year, you pretty much have to think that they're at least going to be a little bit improved this year. But even though I think Florida State does have a chance to turn it around quite a bit this year, I don't think they have any chance of being like they were in 2023. So even though this game is on the road and it's the first game of the season, Kalen DeBoer's got to find a way to beat Florida State, because if he can't beat Florida State, Alabama's going to have at least several SEC losses, and he's going to get fired. And then Louisiana Monroe will be a big blowout, of course. And then Wisconsin, there's really no reason to doubt Alabama winning this game, because they have home field advantage, and they've got a huge talent advantage over Wisconsin. And I'm starting to think, after last season, that maybe Luke Fickle actually isn't a very good coach, because Wisconsin was terrible last year. Now, Alabama could not have a tougher start to their conference schedule, and this is a pretty tough schedule. So on the road at Georgia, of course, is going to be a really tough game, but their first bye week couldn't come at a better time, with it coming up before the Georgia game. But with Georgia losing to Alabama last year, I don't really see any reason to think that they're going to beat Alabama this year, other than it being at Georgia, and they have that really long home winning streak. But they both lose that they're starting quarterbacks from last year, and Alabama does return quite a bit more than Georgia does this year. And Ryan Williams, who was really the hero for Alabama in the Georgia game last year, should be even better this year, because he was only a true freshman last year. And then Vanderbilt. So Kalen DeBoer has got to win this game against Vanderbilt because there is no reason why Alabama ever should lose to Vanderbilt. They have so much more talent than they do all the time. But I actually think it's more likely that Alabama loses to Vanderbilt if they beat Georgia, and more likely they beat Vanderbilt if they lose to Georgia because of how last year went for Alabama. And Diego Pavia is coming back at quarterback for Vanderbilt, and he gave Alabama's defense a nightmare of a game last year. And then on the road at Missouri. Missouri, I think, is maybe the worst 10-3 Power Five team I've ever seen last year. And they were for sure the worst 10-3 SEC team I've ever seen. Even though I ranked them 18 in my final rankings, I don't actually really think they were a top 25 team. They were not that good of a team. And Missouri, even though they only had one less win in 2024 than they had in 2023, I think the 2024 Missouri team was much worse than the 2023 team, and I think they only got 10 wins because they had a bunch coming back from the 2023 uh, team. But this year they don't, and Missouri is not a real tough place to play. And Alabama, destroyed Missouri last year, so I don't really see any reason why Alabama shouldn't be able to take care of Missouri again. And it's nice where they get their second bye week. It comes right in between what's going to be a really tough four in a row of Tennessee, South Carolina, LSU, and Oklahoma. And it's nice that they get three of those four games at home because of all four of those teams are probably going to be pretty good teams. And even though Alabama has a big home field advantage, Tennessee, LSU, and Oklahoma all do too. So that's why it's a big help for Alabama to get them at home. And it's nice that Alabama is going back to playing an FCS opponent right before the Iron uh, Bowl. And I know I've said that Auburn is not going to be very good this coming season, but that's not going to matter in this game. This is still going to be a tough game for Alabama. And Nick Saban, struggled a whole lot on the road in the Iron Bowl. And the last four times that Alabama has played at Auburn, uh, of the last two, they just barely survived. And both times it looked like at one point that they had no chance of winning. And then the two times that before that that they played at Auburn, they lost. So this is a very losable game for Alabama. And Caleb DeBoer, I knew last year it was going to be a downgrade from Nick Saban, but after how last year went, I think he's a pretty big downgrade. So it's hard to imagine Kalen DeBoer not having the same struggles at Auburn that Nick Saban had. So now for the point spread prediction, games in the green are games where Alabama will be favored to win by a blowout, 20 or more points. Games in the blue are games where they'll be favored to win by double digits, 10 to 19 points, and games in the purple are games where they'll be favored to win by about a touchdown, 6 to 9 points. Games in the pink are games where they'll be favored to win by about a field goal at 1 to 5 points. And games in the gray are games where Alabama will probably be about a field goal underdog. So 1 to 5 points. So um, uh, Louisiana, Monroe, Alabama should be favored by like 5 touchdowns. And Eastern Illinois, Alabama should be favored by like 50 points. And Wisconsin, I think the spread will be like 2 touchdowns, maybe 14 points. And Vanderbilt, I also think the spread will be about 14 points. And Florida State, because it's on the road, I've got that one in the purple. It'd be in the blue if it was a home game. But right now, I think the spread will be 8 or 9 points. And Oklahoma, that's in the purple because it's a home game. It'd be in the pink if it was a road game. I think right now Alabama will be favored by 7. And Auburn is in the purple because it's on the road. It'd be in the blue if it was a home game. I think right now Alabama will probably be favored by like 6 points. And Missouri, I think Alabama will be favored by at least 7. I wouldn't be surprised if they were an 8 or 9 point favorite in that one, and that one would be in the blue if it was a home game. And Tennessee, that one's in the pink because it's a home game for Alabama. They'd probably be an underdog if it was a road game, but I think Alabama will probably be favored by about 3. And South Carolina is a tough one. I wouldn't be shocked because it's on the road. If Alabama was a small underdog or if it was a toss up, but because Vegas hardly ever makes Alabama an underdog, I'm going to say that Alabama will be favored by maybe 2 points in that one. And LSU, I think Alabama will be favored by maybe 4 points, but that'd probably be about a toss up if it was a road game. And Georgia, Alabama might end up being favored, but because it's a road game, I think that Georgia will probably be favored by about a point. But that will be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.